Are you ready to be in the spotlight? Are you ready to share your story with the world? Well, Snails with No Shells is where you need to be. Available on all digital platforms, Facebook, and YouTube. Snails with No Shells. Leave that shell at the door. Where did we go wrong? We were doing so greetings, beautiful ones. I am Ms. BJ Martin, and this is Snails with No Shells. Leave that shell at the door. That is my only rule in this room. All right, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. I have an amazing guest coming to the stage. I had the privilege of interviewing this amazing man with a group of men, but now I got him all to myself. All right, let's bring him to the stage. Dr. Naaman Potts.
Hello. How's everyone?
Yes, thank you for joining us on Snails with No Shells. We appreciate you.
Well, I thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be with you and to just have a quick conversation.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I call these. I call these conversations. I don't call them interviews
Mhm.
because we're not trying to get a job,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, well, maybe, might be.
Oh, and you never know. You're right. You know what? This could possibly be an audition or something, right? You just never
That's
know,
the
right?
truth.
You know
That's
who's
the truth.
watching.
Yes, that's
I
the
love that.
truth.
That's another way to look at this. I love that.
Amen.
All right. So Dr. Naaman Potts is an Amazon best-selling author, and he's a pastor.
Yes.
Yes, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank
Congratulations. That
you.
takes work.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
he's a pastor, been pastoring for 20, no, you're a pastor for 25 years, and you've been preaching for 29 years. That's amazing.
Yes,
And you're
ma'am.
pastor of Bread of Heaven Community Church in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
That's correct.
That's
That's
awesome.
correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations, even on that. Almost 30
Yes,
years.
ma'am. Yes,
My,
ma'am. Then,
you've seen a lot.
yeah. Oh, sometimes I feel like I've seen too much, but it has been a joy to be able to pastor people and to actually lead them in the way of the scriptures. And I'm just fortunate to be one that God chose to use. And so I don't brag or even in any way just try to take credit for what has been happening, but I believe that it all belongs to God. And
Mhm.
so that's who I give all the praise to.
Absolutely. And that's why you can still be doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, seems like I'm nearing a retirement and I need a
Yes.
party, you know.
My. All right. All
Yes,
right.
indeed.
So, Dr. Naaman, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in the city of Norfolk, Virginia,
Mhm.
and nice little quaint area. And I'm glad to be a native of not only Virginia, but a native of Norfolk.
Okay. And what was it like? Because when I think of Norfolk, I think about the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little boyfriend.
Did
Yeah,
you?
in the Navy, I did, and it was
Okay,
the boat was like
okay.
USSR something something something.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Navy, when I hear
Mm-hmm.
Norfolk all the time. So what was it like growing up for you in Norfolk?
Well, in the little area that I grew up in, my neighborhood was predominantly African American, and growing up as a young one, had a lot of people. We played a lot of games, and the neighborhood was conducive for living and growing. And I often tell people that my neighborhood was like 98%, excuse me, 98% husband and wives in the community. My whole street was full of husbands and wives. And so not just in my home, but I had men and women all on my block that helped me to become who I am now. And so that was a beautiful thing for me growing up in my community of Campostella Heights, right there in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, Dr. Naaman, next
Hmm.
question. What did you want to be when you grew up?
well, well, I thought one of the most noble things to be in that time coming up was a police officer or fireman, and so I was really driven more to being a fireman than a policeman. But they was both of them was one of those jobs that I wouldn't mind have been doing, but I didn't. So my career path changed, and I became an entrepreneur um, with transportation. And so I have a small business that deals with trucking. And so that's what, somewhere down the line, that's where I ended up becoming an owner of a company. And it deals with transportation, deals with transporting goods. And so it's been a blessing,
Yeah,
and
how
I'm
long
glad
have
I
you been
did.
doing that? Yeah, how long have
Oh,
you
wow. Hmm, about 35 years. Yeah. Yeah.
really?
I kind of track it by my oldest son.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so about 35 years.
Wow. So
Mhm.
that's why I like having these conversations.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
trucking, that's all right. That
Yes,
is
ma'am.
all right. And what's the name of your trucking company?
Um, the name of it is C&N Trucking. And it's named that because of my sons. I've used their first initial to their names, and I named it pretty much after my sons. And so that's
Oh,
how I came up with it.
that's awesome. I love
Hmm.
that, Dr.
Yes,
Naaman.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's all right. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
So okay, so you didn't do the fireman thing, you didn't do the police, but you were an entrepreneur like way before you even really heard the term, right? Entrepreneur. We hear it so much now, but you've been doing this thing for years.
Yes, ma'am. I have. Been, I started out um, because my father was in that mode, and he always wanted us to do business and work for ourselves, and especially coming up in the early years of the 50s and 40s and things of that nature. um, Black men were having a hard time
Mhm.
just trying to live. And so once my father found out that you can be in a position and be training people in that position, and then someone without that skill can come and snatch your leadership position away,
Mm.
he really then sought the fact that he needed to do something for himself, that he can be his own boss and make rules and provide for himself. And so from that point, that was something he trained my sisters and I and even my brothers to work for yourself. And so that's how I got to that place. Even at 12 years old, I was selling stuff at the house,
Mhm.
learning how to manage money,
Mhm.
learning how to stock a store. And I did that not because my dad had a store, but it was like we had a little store around the street from us, a little corner store. And so I kind of picked up my skills from going to the corner store, working in the corner store. And so it's like after that, I decided I'm going to do something. And I went out and bought things, candy and just about what I saw in their stores. I went out and got those things from the same store and sold it at my house.
Mm-hmm. Boy,
So, so, so I had to learn. See, what I was trying to do was cut off the children from running to the corner store
mm-hmm.
and be in the middle. So before they can get to the corner store, they can stop right at my house and they can get a few things and don't have to go around to the corner store. So I was kind of like, cutting the other business out, but
Right.
that's what businesses do,
That's right. That's right.
That's what.
That's right.
So,
Oh my goodness. You've been an entrepreneur. Oh my God, all your life.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
I love that. That is very inspiring.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So he was selling candy. Hey, I love that.
Hmm.
I remember
Hmm.
I remember going to like the lady, the lady that sell the freezies and the candy.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
potato chips and all that. So you were doing
Uh-huh.
that well though.
Oh
I love
yeah, and see, in as we were growing up, in the '70s, late '60s, early '70s, and throughout, yeah, you had those people that would sell the freeze cups and stuff,
it.
and some of them just made their funding just by the freeze cups. We would run over there on a hot summer day and just get with
Mhm.
one or two to tear their bells up, just ring, 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 that's what we were there for, to
Yeah.
mess their bills up and get those freeze pops,
That's right.
yeah. So I just figured I'm gonna do as much as I could because I understood that to really be functional in society, you had to have money.
Mhm.
And I wasn't raised to hit people in the head and snatch their pocketbooks and stuff.
Right.
My dad, he raised us with a mind to have your own and
Mhm.
do your own and be your own. And so that was the line of the way I came up. And then too, you have to remember, I said that I lived in a neighborhood that was predominantly black, was about 98, 99% black. And so the men that were on our street around in my community, they worked. And so they provided us with a picture of
Yes.
how life should be when you grow. You get you a good woman, you raise your family, you go to work, you be the producer for the things that your children need, keep a roof over your head, love your wife, love your children, and things of that nature. And so uh, I had no choice but to learn something good
Mhm.
because of all of the people that was around us, and so they were active in making us good children, good
Yeah.
adults, and things of that nature. So I'm so grateful for my neighborhood.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Okay, so you have this amazing trucking company. How did you
Hmm.
get into pastoring? How did that happen? When did that come about?
Well, it came about in 1997. I was actually a minister in my church for as many as 4 to 5 years. I didn't think that I would be pastoring because my father was a pastor and bishop, and I had no idea that this would be my lot in life. But you can kind of say that I somewhat followed his footsteps.
Mhm.
And so in 1997, I felt the leading of the Lord after much prayer and consultation um, that this would be my next step. And so 1997, I left my church in Norfolk, Virginia,
Mhm.
which was Good News Family Worship Center, was part of one of the big, amazing organization of churches called the Church of God in Christ. And so I left there and began to pastor in that same organization. And so that started in 1997.
Wow. Wow. Nice. Awesome.
Hmm.
And you said you've been doing that for almost 30 years. I can't get over that. Like, wow.
Yeah, I understand because I don't look like
Right, you don't.
29 years.
You don't. You don't.
I don't look like 29 years. I mean, but if you could have seen me 29 years ago, I mean, I was much younger, of course, and I didn't have all of this gray stuff all on my face at the time. I was very, very young looking, and
Mhm.
uh, but after 29 years of preaching and 25 of that 29 of pastoring, I've kind of changed.
Mhm.
But I thank the Lord, I'm still healthy and strong.
Okay. All right. I love it. I love it.
Hmm.
Um, so we definitely need to get into the major part of this story, and this is the book.
Okay. Amen.
Grief through his eyes.
Hmm.
Um, you have your copy. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Grief through his eyes. This is a man's perspective. Before we get into that part of the conversation, I would like to um we have a sponsor for today's episode of Snails and No Shells. Someone play that commercial and we'll get right back to it.
All right.
All right, all right. Thank you. Own It Magazine CEO Marisa Blurdern. Thank you for sponsoring this evening's episode of Snails with No Shells. All
All
right.
right. Woo.
All right. We're having fun. We are having fun.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to show the picture that I have because this actually shows all the beautiful co-authors of Through His Eyes.
Yes.
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 Amazing.
Yes.
There's 14 beautiful authors
Yes.
of Grief Through His
Yes.
Eyes. These are all the handsome and beautiful co-authors. And we have the visionary, Deborah Juniper Fry.
Amen. Wow. Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
All right.
Hmm.
So let's get into it. Tell us about your chapter. Or you could
All
you can
right.
talk about the experience as well, how you even got into it. You can start
All
there.
right. Well, first of all, I want to thank Ms. Fry for contacting my wife. They met at some point at a at an event, and she heard about me wanting to write. I've always wanted to write a book, or pamphlet or something, but I've had a hard time just trying to keep the storyline going. And so I got a call from Miss Fry, and when she called, she was like, Dr. Potts, you need to come on and write that book. And I was like, wow, I do want to write, but I have such a hard time trying to write. She made it so easy for me that she told me to write my story in this book.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, this should be much easier for me to do than just trying to come up with various concepts
Mhm.
to writing this book. And so that's what happened. And I got an opportunity to start writing. And then I was introduced to all of the other amazing authors. And we were able to compile this book. And it became a number one seller.
Yes,
And so I'm just so happy
congratulations.
to be a part
Yes,
of it. Yes,
yes,
ma'am. Thank you.
congratulations.
Glad to be there. So um, it was. I often tell people that, life is supposed to be simple. Life is never supposed to be difficult. It was made difficult, but in the interim, it was created to be simple.
Mhm,
And so I was like, well, she made it very easy for me
mhm.
to compile my story and place it within the book that she had envisioned having. So I'm grateful to that,
That's
for her being that person. Hmm.
that's beautiful. And I'm glad you answered the call. I'm glad you said
Hmm.
yes.
Me too.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes. So let's get it. So what is the name of your chapter?
The name of my chapter is Anguish and Regret. Anguish and Regret.
Okay, and tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about it.
Okay. Well, Anguish and Regret um, came about because of some of the things that I experienced early on.
Mhm.
Remember now, I told you that my father was a pastor and bishop.
Yes.
And so, because of me coming up as a child, I experienced many of funerals.
Mhm.
I had to go as a baby growing on up. And
Right.
so, in my chapter, it speaks about me being at a funeral and watching one of the persons coming who were trying to be a part of the funeral, coming to view and stuff. And before that person could get to view the body, she had collapsed. And unfortunately, she passed away right there, to be
Funeral.
exact. And so, as a young lad, I watched this, but I had no idea of what it was all about. I just watched her crying. I saw so many people crying at a
Mhm.
young age, but I didn't know um, the extent of the grief that she was feeling. So to the point that it caused her to have to, cry out, and then she passed away. And so that was my first, I believe, time I came into something about grief. I
Mhm.
didn't know what it meant. I didn't know anything about grief. I just knew that this woman was crying, and therefore it was nothing that I can do. So, a part of this chapter, regret, um, simply just let me know that I didn't know what I could do. I wanted to do something, but I couldn't do anything at 7 or 8 years old.
Mhm.
So, but I just watched so much of people just, seemed like I was going to a funeral just about every week.
Mm.
And so, yeah, because like I said, him being a pastor, it just always put me in that spot. So, yeah, that's how it
Mm.
happened. Hmm.
I That's the first time I've heard that before. Someone,
Hmm.
what they call a death at a funeral, like
Death
someone
at a
actually
funeral.
passing
Hmm.
away
Hmm.
at a funeral. You said you were 7 or 8.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're not only carrying that memory around all these years, you're carrying around all those funerals
Many of them.
years.
Yes.
So Dr. Naaman, how
Hmm.
how did you deal with that? Like all these years, I mean, like for just seems like for a normal kid, a funeral,
Hmm.
that many funerals, and then seeing something like that.
Hmm.
How did that affect you?
Affected me greatly because it made me nervous.
Mm,
I understood, I understand now what I didn't understand then.
hmm.
And that is that every one of us at some point in life, we are going to pass that way.
Right.
Um, but in my early years, I had a form of consolation in the fact that every person that passed away, they were old.
Mm,
Okay. And so, but it made me nervous because of the fact of um, I never seen anybody young, my age, or anything like that, pass away.
Mm.
But everybody was old, and so it scared me looking at those persons laying there and couldn't move, and it also made me feel like at some point they might just jump up. So I was really nervous, and so it affected me greatly because I would be at home, and as long as I was around people, I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to be by myself, like go upstairs, I would cut on every light that I could cut on to go upstairs. And to, if it was something my dad sent me up there to get, come back down, I would cut on every light and I would run upstairs and I would be fast because the memory of what I saw, I felt like that person was somewhere standing and it's gonna say like boo or something like that
Right.
to me. And it scared me. And I never said anything to my parents about it. It was just something I carried along with me up until now.
Hmm. Wow. And I've never thought about, like, the preacher's son, like the preacher's children, what they
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with and endure having a father as a pastor. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think about the funerals at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So you,
I don't, I'm better with it now because
mhm,
I've been pastoring, but I still feel like the grief can be horrendous in some cases, depending on how close you were to that person or persons.
mhm,
And so back at that time, I really wasn't close like that. I'm growing. I'm a young man trying to learn life,
right,
and that was not the part of life that I wanted to learn. I just wanted
right,
to play with my friends. I just wanted to hang out.
right.
So that was a part of the reason I wrote this my chapter.
Yes.
That's just half of that. That's why I was saying to you, it's anguish and regret. Mhm.
Okay.
Is it just my imagination? Or is it just insane?